McDonald's burger, that is, and I'll tell you the reason why. My fancy bells might look up, and I wouldn't be ready to die. I'm a storyteller, and I talk about people, but I tell, especially white people, that if you're under the sound of my voice, you are all right with me. I used to teach school in Atlanta, and I had a little white girl to go home and tell her mother, say, Mama, Mr. Zachary sure did talk about white folk today. And Mama was in the principal's office with me the next morning, and she said, you know, I told my daughter that I was going to go up there the next morning and have his black ass fired. But I'm here drinking coffee with you because my daughter said, but Mama, you don't understand. You haven't heard him talk about black folk. That is something to behold. I don't put anybody down. But, you know, I really haven't had a McDonald's. And my story starts in 1959. I need this thing a little bit higher. It reminds me, and that's part of my story, you know, when we had to drink out of the separate water fountains, you could not be caught leaning your head down. We had little cups, and we held our heads up. Our parents taught us that. But take your time, take your time. We ain't got nothing but time. You know what I mean? Why don't you move it up? Thank you, thank you.
That's a good spot right there. Good.
All right. But I've heard about open mic at the Kava bar on Wednesday night, and I don't know if I apologize that I haven't been here. I travel a lot, but I was going to tell you the story about McDonald's. You know, it came to my hometown around 1960, and certain folk couldn't go. Well, hell, we didn't want that burger anyway. We loved Miss Odessa. Miss Odessa was this tall black woman. She was about 7 feet tall. And there was something else about Miss Odessa. She was this tall, big-breasted black woman. And when you went into her place, now don't get shaky now. Don't get shaky. You know, I was telling this story once, and a woman jumped up. I just think you're being sexist. I said, honey, let me finish my story. You see, because I was around, us boys were around 11 and 12, and the reason it was the best burger on the block, but also Miss Odessa knew our parents, and when you walked in and sat on the bar stool, she came from behind the counter and she hugged each one of us and just pulled us in her bosom, and we wanted to rest there forever. And you know, it made the burger better, you know what I mean? But, you know, I'm not going to tell all that story because it would take too long. I talk about when I met Martin Luther King, and by the time they let us go into McDonald's and all that other fast food, we didn't want it anyway, you see, because, you know, by the time I was in college, I was a vegetarian. So I never had a McDonald's. But I did go to Selma, and some of y'all might have seen me on TV, and I couldn't say a certain word, but I like to keep it light, you know what I mean? And so I'm writing this piece, and I said it to the news people, and it is the fascination of Jim Crow's fascination with something. And now you remember, I mean you don't remember because most of you are young, but basically there were certain things that were separate. And we could understand the separate but equal kind of stuff on certain levels. Anybody know what it was? I said about the water fountains. What else was it?
Bathrooms.
Don't say bathroom, because that's where I'm going. What else? Anybody?
The bus school.
The bus, the schools, right. The doctor's office. You know, they had a color and a white. You know, the white part was real nice, like these sofas here, and black part, they might have a cane bottom chair. But that was all right because, see, what a lot of people don't understand is black folk had pride out of their ass, honey. We were proud. You know what I mean? Didn't bother us. But it was one area that we could not understand. What do you think that was?
Bathroom.
How are you going to separate shit? I mean, what's the irony of that? It's going to the same place. You know what I'm saying? And we just could not understand that. And I go all into that about, well, I wonder when it got down to the chakalaka and they began to sterilize the water, did they have somebody saying, okay, this is the white and that's the black? Sounds like psychosis to me. You know, there's a person who lives in Montreat, and he's 90-some years old. Anybody know who that is?
Billy Graham.
Billy!
Yeah.
Billy, he ain't dead yet. He just won't die. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why. The first thing I got to tell you, do you know who Billy was chosen? You know that, don't you?
No.
He was handpicked by whom? And you know it wasn't God. You know what I'm saying now? You know God ain't had nothing to do with that. No, Billy was picked by the business community. You know, Monsanto and same ones that doing the dirty stuff today. Y'all don't believe, go and Google it. But he's still living for some reason. You know his wife name, I don't know his wife's name, but she gone on the globe. Billy's still here. You know why, don't you?
Huh.
Because Martin said one time, if I could just get Billy on our side, we could wipe the South open. Billy would never stand up and you know, I went to Selma and Billy had been invited. And Billy was in South Carolina having one of his preaching things. And he would not go to Selma. Now look, all kind of rabbis, the Unitarian Church was there, the Presbyterian, all of them. But not Billy. But, you know, that's why, see, I have a thing with religion today. I have a thing with religion because basically, well, I grew up in a Pentecostal Holiness church and they kicked me out of there. I mean, twice. I ain't talking about one time. They kicked me out twice and wrote the letter and used the Catholic word, we excommunicate you. And I went on about my business. You know what I'm saying? I have a problem with religion because it's so corporate. You can't tell the difference. You know, I mean, you know what I mean? But I used to be a preacher. I used to be. Y'all don't believe that, do you?
I do.
I used to be a preacher. I didn't preach like this. I was very formal, you know. I was taught seminary way. And nobody ever said, hey, man. I got more attention right now than in the church, you know what I'm saying? I'm still a chaplain, but I just had a problem with the way the churches did things and the way they still do things and how they, you know, we got homelessness all over the nation. I remember a time when everybody had a place to stay, black and white. Wasn't nobody homeless. Wonder what caused that. You think they sit down and talked about it. But, you know, I enjoyed myself in Selma. I just don't understand why we're so afraid to talk with each other. You know, America stopped talking. Everybody went in their house and closed their shades and blinds and, you know, did this little nuclear family. And you don't understand, the more you pull your family together, it's being pulled apart by all this stuff out here. I like the extended family. I don't know about y'all. I like being around people. But I don't say, I don't fool myself. See, I was speaking one time and the president of the college got up and said, well, we don't see color here. And I knew him. We were good friends. I said, John, when you look to your right, you see all this black? This is color, baby. Color. Amen. But the thing is, we superficially try to get beyond, and then it goes on into the environment, and we superficially justify fracking and all kinds of stuff. I'm very political. I'm very spiritual too. And I didn't get my meditation and my yoga from India. Hell, I learned to meditate when I was 3, 4, 5. See, your parents get tired of you and they getting ready to gossip. And you knew where to go. Every child had a tree. And you went out there and you did something. I mean, you meditated, masturbated, everything else. And it gathered you together. But by the time I was 19, I was in my first yoga class, and he was just amazed. Where you learn all that from? Well, I grew up in a sanctified holiness church. And people had some power, you know what I mean? It was one lady in the church. It was one lady. She was elderly, and she would get her shout on every Sunday night. And it went without fail. She had a handkerchief. You ever seen those black churches with handkerchiefs? I mean, hallelujah, handkerchiefs and hats. You know what I mean? And we begin to notice as children, Mother Wyatt would get happy and start shouting and throw that handkerchief. And then by Monday morning, the person that the handkerchief landed on was David. And so us children didn't want to die. You know what I mean? And when Mother Wyatt got the whoop moving, we would go up under the pews. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just crawling all over. Because we didn't want to die. But they had some power. And I wish we could get some of that power back in common sense. I'm just as at home with Tea Party folk as I am with anybody else. You know why? Because I teach a peaceful, common decency. Okay, look, I don't believe we should come with guilt. Well, you know y'all did that. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I forget it, and half the time people don't even know what they're talking about. All of us got some stuff, but I teach a common decency. I write poetry too. I can't write as good as he does, because my subjects, you know, Kevin is very formal and he can go. I never could write like that, and I can't remember any of my poems. I've written probably 1,000. You know what I mean? Some of them have been published, but I'm not made up that way. And you know, back in the day, we didn't have no cell phones. We used to talk about, you know, one day we're gonna walk down the streets. Yeah, it was a long time. It was a long time ago. I'm 65. I'm good looking though. Tell me that.
You're good looking.
I'm good looking. For 65, you know, all these Medicare places be calling me every day. You know what I mean? Call. We offer medical this or that and this. And I told one lady one day, I said, look, when I finish telling you that I'm 65, and I know you know that, but honey, I can probably outrun you and your director. I'm at the Y every morning at 5:30, down there working out and in the sauna and everything. You know what I mean? I think I'm physically fit, but I tell you what, this has been a joy. I'm going on a road trip, and I'm going with my friend Ben up to Richmond. Ben is the peace man. That's what it's about. It's about peace and healing. You know what I'm saying? I don't deal with that race stuff. I can't deal with that because ain't nowhere in the world I'm going to try to go out here and work with folk on both sides, because all you're going to get is anger. You know what I'm saying? I don't deal with anger. I'm too good looking and too pure and just too lighthearted to deal with anger. I mean, anger is something that you go in the bathroom, you know, I was talking about, and just flush it on down the toilet. Otherwise, you'll be depressed as hell. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to think of you as I'm out on the road, and I bid you good night.
Y'all give it up again for Mr. Zack.